Welcome to this Archiware webinar, Experience the Best Protection and Real-Time Performance for Production Storage with OpenDrives and Archiware P5. Speaking is David Fox, that's me on the left-hand side from Archiware. I'm in the UK, so it's bedtime here, but I had a coffee, so it should be okay. With me, I have Roger Beck from OpenDrives. Hi, Roger.
Hello, David.
Thanks for being here. So it should be an interesting webinar for everybody. So let's begin with a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the content. Roger's going to talk a bit about OpenDrive. So we're going to take questions. We've got about 25-30 minutes of content, and then we'll do 10 minutes of Q&A. We'll see how many questions you've got for us. Really keen to take your questions. Please type them in to the GoToWebinar interface there. And then once we've finished the presentation, we'll run through your questions in as much detail as we need to. You can ask follow-up questions and so on. This is going to be recorded, and we will share via social media and emails a link to the recording on YouTube. So with that, Roger, would you like to give us an overview of OpenDrives with the first slide?
Absolutely. Yes. Hey, folks. Roger Beck, Solution Architect at OpenDrives. So who is OpenDrives? OpenDrives is a global enterprise scale-out solution provider, NAS-based, that demonstrates SAN performance without the complexity and the hurdle you have to get through. Founded in 2011, we specialized on building media workflow solutions for our customers, which include the biggest names in media entertainment and Hollywood and beyond. We originally founded to solve specific workflow problems, especially, for example, Gongo, one of the first 4K productions, and it didn't really work from kind of purchased applications, purchased NAS vendors. Though the IT manager at the production company built his own solution because nothing was out there which kind of would fit the bill. And this became a product, and from there, it's tailored really for media entertainment with low latency and high throughput. Open standard protocols means our software-defined platform is open, modular, and flexible. We support standard protocols like NFS, SMB, and S3 to avoid any additional installation on the client or proprietary protocols. And we provide customers with the with the freedom of choice with our ecosystem, with open-minded technologies, partners like Archiware, to provide you the best possible usability and outcome from a system without a vendor lock-in. Next slide, please. What you see here actually is our modular system. We went 2020 to a modular system from the monolithic system before. So NAS solutions are usually known for being monolithic, and with our modular design, we achieve the possibility to have HA systems and also to be not scale up, so also scale out. We have three modules: the C module, F module, and H module. C stands for compute module. The F module is our flash module, NVMe based, and the H module is the HDD or spinning disk module. We have industry-leading density. We have everything you see in 2U and a very shallow design, so it's kind of good for OB vents, for flight cases and flight packs, to really lightweight and shallow. The inline cache and quick data retrieval is actually one of our key benefits. Because we're NAS-based and we can achieve SAN performance, we do a lot of kind of caching, and the way we cache is very unique in this market. And as mentioned before, we support scale up and also scale out as well. So you can go from a smaller system with a compute module and one H module up to HA version, up to 16 H modules, or you can grow the scale out into multiple petabytes in one namespace.
Cool. And Roger, so the C module is where you would run like plug-in software like Archiware, right? Because that's where the CPU and the Linux-based operating system is running, yeah?
This is correct. The
Yeah.
containerized version would run on a compute module, on a C module.
And this is the module that has the Ethernet, so you clients are connecting through that module to the storage.
Yes, connectivity-wise, there are 2 management ports and up to 6 100 gigabit ports. There's plenty of bandwidth to support the clients and plenty of bandwidth to kind of fetch data or push data from and to the internet.
Excellent. So take you to the next slide.
Yes, please.
There we go.
So OpenDrives Archiware, we containerized Archiware P5 to run directly on the storage. And this was a customer request, or kind of, customer request. We had a customer, which is CalArt, or California Institute of Art. And they run Archiware before. And moving to our platform, they didn't want to lose all the kind of indexing. And we thought, what would be the best way without actually integrating it directly as a native application? We thought the best way would be running P5 in container, which is the same performance, but has the possibility to just update the P5 software if you want, or we can update our software, our firmware, without affecting the container. So it's customer and customer driven. The benefits of Archiware at OpenDrives include reduced complexity and cost. It involves performance, improved performance, and appliance-like feel. So it's snappy as we are used to have it on a kind of dedicated machine. It's not a VM. And added benefits for customers, e-deployment. We talk about containers, we call them pods, and we have created recipes like a cookbook where you can deploy an Archiware container in kind of 3-4 mouse clicks and have it running and deployed without installing and going down to nits and grits. And the Archiware software, or in that regard, the container can push data out, back it up. So for this solution, OpenDrives is a backup server. We can push data out, back it up, archive it. Whatever you need to do, it can be a second system from us, it can be a third-party system, it can be the cloud, it can be tape, whatever you need to do, it's a full version of Archiware containerized.
Excellent. So we have a little recording here that we'll play whilst Roger explains what's going on.
Our Atlas interface you see there. That's the recipe page. You select a recipe. This is really what it is. You enter your IP address. You define what the Archiware container should see on the storage, which will be met into the container. There's a syntax checks in case you have a typo. You deploy it. It converts now the recipe into a pod, aka container. There are a couple of containers already running. You launch it. Takes a couple of seconds to spin it up. And once it's active, you just click on the link and you will end up in the Archiware landing page. Enter your user and password, and the next step would be enter the license and you're good to go. So it's really actually simple as shown, very quick, very easy, and meant for like no IT guys without kind of tinkering around what you have to do.
Yeah, very, very straightforward. And of course, there's an IP address for the C module, and then you just use a different port to get to the Archiware web admin interface as defined in the container setup. Yeah.
Which you can freely define if you want, absolutely, yes.
Yep. So, it's playing again. Let's just stop that. Okay. So thanks for that, Roger. We'll come back to a bit more about that in a sec. We're now going to talk about the solutions that are enabled by having Archiware P5 running in this containerized environment on the OpenDrive C module. And we're going to focus on a couple of different replication workflows and a couple of different archive workflows. We can also do backup. So there are 3 different modules, but I'm going to focus on, for the next couple of slides, on replication and archive. So the first example, we're going to go OpenDrives to OpenDrives replication. So let's look at that one. And I'll just grab a pointer here. So what we've got here is two OpenDrive stacks. They may not necessarily contain all three different types of modules. They're connected via a LAN or a WAN, and then we have the P5 synchronize running as the module which is going to perform the replication. So what this is it's a file and folder replication from the left-hand stack to the right-hand stack, all OpenDrive's infrastructure. And what we're doing is just making a file and folder-based replica to the secondary storage on the right-hand side. This is based on a schedule, so you could have it run once a day, every 4 hours, every hour. It's not responding to changes immediately on the, let's call it the production storage on the left-hand side. It's collecting changes over a period of time, and then it's performing an update to the storage on the right-hand side, where it can either overwrite files that are changing, or we can retain historic file versions where files are changing. We can put a folder there and keep some number of previous file versions. So we have a very fast way of identifying changes. You may have many millions of files, many tens of terabytes, but we can flick through all of that data pretty quickly, compare metadata, and work out what needs to be changed. So with this solution, the advantages are that we have a very easily configured solution that you can monitor in a browser interface. We have a scheduler which handles the running of these jobs invisibly to you. We can report via email on how much was copied to the administrator of the system. And this is having a replication is a very simple way to have a second copy of your data, because you can fail over to that additional OpenDrive storage on the right-hand side anytime you need to and get access to all of the data that you had on the production system without needing to perform any kind of restores or anything like that. So it's great in a live environment. We can do stuff like compression and encryption as the data travels over the LAN or WAN. And we can also have multiple copy streams running if you have a lot of network bandwidth to push the data across more quickly. To have this solution running between the two OpenDrive stacks, you simply need to install the recipe for P5 on both, choose which one of them is going to be the kind of controller, do the configuration on that one. The other one will be kind of the slave machine. You can either push the data or pull the data, whichever suits you the best. So that's the first solution. Number two is basically the same thing, but instead of replicating to OpenDrive's hardware on the right-hand side, we can do the exact same workflow using commodity hardware, anything running Windows, Linux, FreeBSD. We're in the stores for Synology, QNAP, Netgear, ReadyNAS. So you may have a customer, may be the customer that has some storage which was previously the production storage, which is now not being used so much. So with P5 Synchronize, you can use that to make a replica. Everything else is the same. Retention of files, all of the good stuff that we just mentioned. The advantage of this solution is the ability to use commodity storage or existing hardware that's already owned within the organization. So my third example solution is archival. So what's archiving? It's basically taking completed project work from production storage that doesn't need to be there, that's just filling it up and shifting it into cold storage. So the first solution is using public cloud vendors like Amazon, Wasabi, Backblaze, Google, and so on, Azure. These are all using the S3 protocol. So the P5 archive module allows you to create a workflow where you can browse storage on the OpenDrive side, identify things that you want to archive either through a manual selection, through MAM integration, through a hot folder where you push stuff that's ready to be archived. P5 will pick that up, it'll write it into this object or container storage, and it will create an index or database with some basic media asset management functionality that allows you to browse the assets in your archive, see thumbnails of them, play back small proxy, low-res proxies of media files, do searches on file names or metadata, and then at some point in the future locate things that you may wish to bring back onto the OpenDrive storage so that you can repurpose some older work, so you can start a new project based on some old rushes or whatever you want to do. So advantages of this solution that we have a long-term retention of production data without leaving it on the expensive production storage. We can leverage the low-cost upfront costs of cloud storage. You can run P5 on your OpenDrive stack. You can pay a little bit of money to Amazon as you go, or one of those other vendors, and you can start doing archiving straight away, so long as you have some upload bandwidth. You have the freedom of choice from cloud vendors, freeing up space. And as I previously mentioned, you get this mini media asset management interface through which you can recover stuff and see what's in your archive. So all of that running on the OpenDrive stack. If you wanted to do this one, which is an LTO tape-based archive, which is also popular with our customers because of the capacity of LTO and the speed and the fact that it's on-prem rather than with a third party, then you can run LTO hardware like we have over here. So we have a slightly more complex schematic here where the data, the tape hardware is not being connected directly to the OpenDrive's controller. So we have an external host with either SAS or fiber channel allowing connection to the tape hardware, which could either be another rack mounted LTO library that could sit in a rack with the OpenDrive's hardware, or you could just use a single standalone LTO drive or a couple of drives if you want to have immediate redundancy. So this external host can be Linux, Windows, Mac OS, any of the operating systems that we run on. Could even be a QNAP, where we also support tape via SAS. And the workflow is the same. So we're putting stuff into an index, giving you that MAM style interface to browse what's there, but all of the data is going to be stored on tape. And advantages here are you have access to vast on-prem storage capabilities because the current LTO generation gives you 18 terabytes of uncompressed storage per tape cartridge and about 360 megabytes per second of write speed. And LTO tapes are a great long-term cold storage format. They're rugged. They last longer than hard drives. If you want to keep data for 10 years and not worry about it, then tapes are a great way to go. Plus, you have ownership of the data. And as with cloud services, you've got to pay every month for whatever you've put in there since you started. Whereas with tape, you just pay once for the tape hardware and you're good. So just a quick mention on the next slide of an add-on for the archive module called P5 Data Mover. So we have a lot of customers that already did a lot of archiving, maybe to older generation of LTO tapes. And the Data Mover allows you to shift data around between LTO, between cloud storage and disk storage, which we also support. So this could be used for bringing your archive data to a newer, larger LTO tape generation from maybe LTO 6 to LTO 9, or you may have a desire to push data from tape into cloud storage. You could do that. You could go the other way. Maybe you decide you want to stop using cloud, bring your data on-prem onto LTO. So we get a lot of flexibility. But the migration is time-based, so it doesn't have to be everything. You can choose a time window, and then we will just run tasks when the server's not busy, and we'll push the data from A to B as you wish. So with that, I'm just going to give a little introduction to Archiware P5. I've just spoken about some of the things that you can do with it in the context of an OpenDrives installation. So as already mentioned, we have three modules. We have the backup, archive, synchronized replication between two sets of disks, backup and archive using cloud and tape predominantly. Just a couple more words. What's the difference between a backup and an archive? A backup is copying data for disaster recovery reasons. So you have a position where you can recover all your production data back if you have a failure back to the disk storage pretty quickly. So therefore you need to be backing up against all the data, running that every day, probably taking some of that off site. Ideally, you should have two backups of the important storage. So you could have a backup go wrong and the storage go wrong and you still can recover everything. So this is different to archive. Archive is a moving data into the archive, which may be on the same LTO tape library that the backup is on, but it's for a different purpose. It's moving data into cold storage, probably completed work, going offline, you're choosing what you want to archive rather than backup, where you back up everything. And we find, as a company really focused on media and broadcast, M&E, we find everybody needs an archive. Everybody that creates media needs a way of pushing it offline when the time comes. USB disks, they're not an archive, but it's a big competitor, I find, to real archives, is people buying lots of hard drives, throwing data on them, hoping it's still going to be there in 10 years, hoping they can remember which disk they put it on. It's not redundant. It's not offsite very easily. You can't search it. It's not a professional solution. So that's where OpenDrives and Archiware comes in. Quick screen grab of the interface that you will see after you've been archiving files off to cloud or tape. You can browse the archive by going down a folder path, finding some files in a folder that were originally on the live storage, seeing the file names, seeing thumbnails for each of those, in this case, movie files, CCTV movie files. And then over on the right, we have the ability to play back from a proxy that we create at the point that we're archiving the file. You choose the resolution and length of the proxy, but it gives you some visual indication of what's there. We can also capture metadata custom to your requirements, so we can suck metadata out of the media files, store that in our database, and make that searchable. So then you're in a position to do a search, find a project name or number, see the assets that are in that project, choose the ones that you want to recover, throw those into like a shopping basket, and then have that stuff pulled back onto the OpenDrive storage, ready for repurposing as a new project. And if you're using tape, then we tell you which tape. If you're using cloud, we just connect into the cloud via S3, go to the bucket, find the data that we need. Everything in the cloud is compressed into sort of optimum size objects, so we're making best use of the bandwidth up to the cloud. Okay, so how are we doing for time? It's about 25 past. So that's the end of our presentation. Let me just get rid of that pointer there. So we hope that was all pretty clear. So I'm hoping that you guys have been asking me some questions as we've been going along. If you have any questions, then please type them into the questions box. I can see we have a few here already. So we have a question from Rajiv. He's asking about using a quantum scalar tape library with Archiware. So Rajiv, that's absolutely fine. One of the nice things about Archiware is that it's been supporting tape for a long time. So we're supporting tape drives and libraries from all of the vendors that manufacture that hardware. All the drives are built by IBM these days, but the libraries and enclosures are built by lots of different vendors, Quantum being one of them. So we support Quantum libraries. We've got lots of customers already running on them. You'll need a host in this OpenDrive solution with either SAS or Fiber on it, so that you can connect that, run P5 there, and then that will hook up into the OpenDrive's storage. So that's fine. Question just in from Brian. Does P5 recognize image sequences as video files for thumbnails and previews? That's a good question. We don't automatically do that. You would need to use FFmpeg to generate like an MP4 proxy of the file frame per file sequence, and then have P5 ingest that to give you a thumbnail and a proxy. That's a question I've been asked a few times actually. So the image sequences, basically, it's possible to write a little shell script within Archiware. So when it sees a bunch of, I can't remember the file, DPX files, something like that, it could run FFmpeg, just to get a bit technical there, and generate an MP4 from the sequence. Obviously, that can take a bit of time, so it's not ideal. But that's the best solution we have for that. So thanks for the question, Brian. Jeffrey's asking, there's a few words to read here. I have clients with no access to Archiware P5 archive data. They require quick file lists created from older Archiware P5 tapes. They need to understand what content they have on each tape before we spend time on archiving. Okay, so you've got a bunch of tapes that are written by P5 and you want to generate maybe a list of a text file. Is this possible? Yeah, that's possible. I'd suggest there's quite a lot of detail to read out in the webinar. So maybe send me an email, Jeffrey, df@archiware.com, and we could discuss that a bit further, because you're suggesting that we maybe make a YouTube resource to show how to do this. There are CLI commands available that will dump out the index and tell you all the files and which tape they're on. So I think that's probably what you need. You need to use a CLI command if everything that's on the tapes is already in the index. If it's not, we have to ingest the tapes, which is also something that we can do. So yeah, ping me an email, Jeffrey, and I'll give you more of a lowdown on it. Another question from Brian. P5 licensing model for libraries. So yeah, basically, if you want to run a 25 slot library with 2 LTO 9 drives, then you license the 25 slots and you license the 2 LTO drives, and you're good. Those licenses, of which we just said 25, they either activate a single slot in a tape library, or they give you 8 terabytes of cloud or disk storage. So they're interchangeable. They're called storage licenses. Either a slot or 8 terabytes is what they'll give you. Okay, so let me just scroll through my list here to see what else we've got. So we've got Sam asks, can I deploy OpenDrive software onto any hardware? Roger, I think that's one for you.
Yes. You can actually, we go to a software-only model, though it will be much more, you will have many more choices. Right now, we're speccing 3-4 different vendors we can choose from. So not on any hardware, but on pre-qualified hardware as a software-only model, right? You buy the software from us or from your partner in the end, and you pick and choose your flavor of hardware you would like to use.
Excellent, thanks for that. Another one for you, I think. We've got Pete is asking, can I deploy my own container? I guess that means, choose your own software and run it as like a Docker.
Yes, it's a good question, Pete. While we're running Docker, we still kind of have the hand on it, and we would like to verify the container, what impact it will have for the system, because the main purpose of the system is to serve files as fast as possible with low latencies. And as you may know, certain applications have a kind of high CPU impact. So we are open for suggestions. We take them, analyze them, if it makes sense, turn to recipe, and it will be there in the next release. So not your own, but we are open to receive any information, any ideas of new containers, if it makes sense.
Okay, one for both of us. Clive is asking, how much does OpenDrives and Archiware cost? So he wants to buy the whole lot, and he wants to know how much.
I have Tim Chan on the panel here as well. I have him answer the questions of, I do not do money talks. Tim, if you hear it, go talk away.
Yeah, hi, thanks for asking. It varies greatly, obviously, depending on performance. We have 3 different performance compute modules, so depending on your requirements, and also a wide variety of options with the flash and spinning disk modules in the back end. We really start around $50,000 in our entry-level system, so that'll give you an idea, and we go up to a lot more than that, depending on, again, on what your performance and your capacity requirements are. So hopefully that gives you a decent idea on where we are price-wise for OpenDrives.
Thank you. So on the Archiware side, those replication workflows I showed you start at about $2,500 US. An archive solution that is archiving to a 25 slot library with a couple of drives would be just under 5K USD. That's with 2 LTO drives. Otherwise, it depends on the size of the tape library. So 25 slots, 2 LTO drives is pretty common, kind of low end entry point. And then you can add more drives, you can add more slots. We kind of go up above 10, 12K for a kind of top end solution. So yeah, that's pretty much where we fit in with the pricing. So let me just close that and get back into there. So I've got Bob is asking, is OpenDrives Linux running on x86 64-bit operating system? So he's wondering a bit about the internals.
Hello, Bob. Yeah, we do run a kind of x64 operating system underneath. It's Linux-based, but we do compile our own kernel, hence the Atlas core software. And compiling the own kernel has the benefit of you kick out modules which you do not need. You can take modules from the user space, bring them to the kernel space, which lowers latencies. And so that's all we are about, to lower latencies to get more performance. So yes, it's kind of Linux-based in that regard, but we do a lot of kind of legwork to make it as fast as possible to have good outcome for the customer.
Thank you. Good question here from Naomi. You mentioned that OpenDrive system is modular and that you can scale up. How much can you scale up, and do you support scale out? I think you mentioned both of those, but I guess it's a question about how big can you go. So that's
it's a very good question. I just scratched the topic. So yes, scale up, we can scale up a very, very dense. So depending on the module you have, you can go up to 16 H modules. Each H module is 250 terabytes. Or if you want to go denser, we have 102 drive modules available, which can be connected 4 or 8, and each module can have up to 1.4 petabytes. So this is scale up. If you need space and you need performance in a single namespace, we are having scale out as well. So we're talking about stacks then, what you have seen before, the compute module, F and H module, would be one stack. You can replicate that and stripe the file system over the stacks, so you get increased performance, and then you get, of course, the full capacity. Thank you. So we do scale up and scale out both, and there's actually virtually no limit in kind of scaling it out.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, I don't see any further questions from anybody. We had a good little selection there. So unless anybody's typing one in now and it's about to pop up right in front of me, I think we will wrap up. So just a couple of slides to put up at the end to say that if you're interested in Archiware, then go to the Archiware site. You can download and grab an evaluation. It's just a software-only solution, so you can have a play with that on your own environment. Current versions are always available. And on the final slide, OpenDrives.com is where you can learn more about OpenDrives, or email them at hello@opendrives.com with questions. I'll just flick back to the very first slide because I suggested somebody send me an email. So that's my email address, and Roger's is over there on the right-hand side if you want to get in touch with him. So thanks for the kind messages that you're sending in the questions to say thanks for a good webinar. Yeah, there's a recording, so we'll make that available to you. We won't take up any more of your day. So thank you, Roger.
Thank you very much, David.
And also thanks to Tim for helping with the questions. And thanks from me. And we'll see you in the next webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.